Captain stood in the main hall of the space station called Harmony's Edge. The place was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Light came through tall windows that showed the stars outside. Around her, aliens of different shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some walked on two legs like humans. Others floated or crawled. She had studied them all, but seeing them in person was different. Wore her dark blue uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. Behind her stood her crew from the ship Steadfast. There was Han, her security officer, a quiet man who watched everything with sharp eyes. Park, the science officer, carried a data pad with all of humanity's achievements loaded on it. They were here for one reason. Earth wanted to join the Galactic Coalition. The Coalition was a group of 7 alien species. They had faster-than-light travel. They had weapons that could destroy planets. They had been exploring space for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. Now, finally, Earth had caught up enough to ask for membership. A tall alien walked toward them. His name was Or. He belonged to the race reptilian creatures with scales like armor and claws that could tear through metal. He stood almost 8 feet tall. When he looked down his yellow eyes showed no warmth. Captain Or said, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together, "The Council will see you now." Nodded and followed him. Her crew walked behind her. They entered a massive chamber shaped like a circle. 7 seats rose high above the floor, each one holding a different alien species. These were the leaders of the coalition. Or took his place at one of the seats. He looked at a holographic display in front of him. "We have reviewed your species application," he said. "We have concerns." Kept her face calm. "We expected that. Humanity is new to interstellar travel, but we have much to offer." Another alien spoke. This one was called an insect-like creature with multiple eyes. "Your technology is acceptable," they said in a buzzing voice. "But the Coalition faces threats. We fight against the Empire. They raid our colonies. They take slaves. They respect only strength." "We understand," said. "Earth has faced threats too. We know how to defend ourselves." Or made a sound like laughter, but it held no humor. "Defend yourselves. We studied your biology. You have no natural armor, no claws, no venom. Your teeth are weak. Your bones break easily. You heal slowly compared to Or." Park stepped forward. "May I speak?" Or gestured with one clawed hand. "Proceed." Activated her data pad. Images appeared in the air showing human cities, ships, and technology. "Humans may not have natural weapons, but we create them. We have advanced medicine. Our ships are fast and efficient. Our people are creative problem solvers." A third alien, something that looked like a mass of tentacles in a tank, spoke with a translated voice. "This proves our point. You compensate for weakness with tools. What happens when your tools fail? What happens in direct combat?" Han's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Noticed his hands forming fists at his sides. Or pulled up more data. "We reviewed your military history. You avoid direct combat when possible. You prefer negotiation and diplomacy. This is the behavior of prey animals, not warriors." "We prefer peace," said carefully. "That doesn't mean we can't fight." "Can't or won't?" Or asked. "The Coalition needs warriors. We need species that can face the in battle. You soft skins would be a liability." The word soft skins echoed in the chamber. Felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. Getting emotional wouldn't help their case. "We came here in good faith," said. "Give us a chance to prove ourselves." Before Or could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed. An automated voice announced in multiple languages, "Emergency. Distress call received. All military personnel report to command." The council members looked at screens appearing before them. Or's eyes narrowed as he read the information. "A raiding fleet has attacked the mining colony on 7, 3 warships, estimated 500 ground troops." His heart raced. How many civilians are on that colony? 3,000, they answered. Multiple species, mostly worker class. We need to send ships, said. Evacuate them. Or shook his head. Coalition protocol is clear. We evacuate leadership and essential personnel. Workers are expendable. That will take them as slaves or kill them. Either way, the colony is lost. Stared at him in disbelief. You're just going to abandon 3,000 people. It is the logical choice, the tentacled alien said. Sending our fleet would risk valuable warships. The colony has minimal defenses. By the time we arrive, they will have fortified their position. The casualties would be unacceptable. Unacceptable. His voice rose despite her best efforts to stay calm. What about the people dying right now? Or studied her with those cold yellow eyes. This is why your species is not ready for coalition membership. You think with emotion instead of logic. You value individual lives over strategic necessity. This is weakness. Took a breath. An idea formed in her mind. It was crazy. It would probably end her career and maybe her life. But she couldn't stand here and do nothing. The Steadfast is a diplomatic vessel, she said. We're not part of your military chain of command. We can go to 7. The chamber fell silent. Then or laughed that grinding rock sound again. You, 50 humans in a light diplomatic ship, against 3 warships and 500 troops, you would die before you even entered orbit. Maybe, said, but we'd try, that's what humans do. Looked at her captain with wide eyes. Hand stepped closer to side, a small nod showing his support. Or leaned forward. This is foolishness, but if you insist on throwing your lives away, the coalition will not stop you. Perhaps it will teach your species the reality of galactic warfare. We don't need your permission, said. We're not members yet, remember. We can do what we want. She turned to her crew. Back to the ship. We launch in 30 minutes. As they walked out of the chamber, heard the aliens talking behind them. Some sounded amused. Others sounded dismissive. None of them sounded like they expected to see the humans alive again. In the corridor caught up to, Captain, are you sure about this? Those are warships. They could destroy us before we even get close. I know, said, but I saw the look in Orr's eyes when he talked about abandoning those workers. They think we're weak because we care about individual lives. They're wrong. Hand spoke for the first time since the meeting began. They called us soft skins. They think we're prey animals. He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a wolf. Maybe it's time we showed them what prey animals can do when they're cornered. Nodded, get everyone ready. This is going to be rough. As they headed back to the Steadfast, knew the odds were against them. They were warriors. They had better weapons, better armor, and better ships. But they didn't know humans. They didn't know what desperation could make people do. The Steadfast launched from Harmony's Edge 30 minutes later. On the station, Orr and the Council watched them go. They expected the humans to fail. They expected them to die. They had no idea what was coming. The Steadfast dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the 7 system. Saw 3 warships in orbit around the planet. They were massive, covered in dark metal and weapon ports. Energy beams shot down from them, hitting the colony on the surface. Captain, I'm picking up the distress signal, said from her station. It's automated. No one's responding to our hails. Wu Jin sat at the pilot controls. He was young but one of the best pilots Earth had ever produced. His hands moved over the console, studying the tactical display. Those warships are in a blockade formation. If we try to approach directly, they'll destroy us in seconds. Stood behind his chair, looking at the data. Can you get us to the surface? Through 3 warships, Wu Jin asked. Not a chance. Even if we somehow got past them, they'd track us and blow us apart. Hand stepped onto the bridge. He had changed into combat gear, black armor that could stop most small arms fire. Behind him came the ship's small marine detachment. There was Song, a big man with scars on his face from Earth's last war. stood next to him, smaller but with eyes that missed nothing. Sara, the medic, carried her medical kit and a rifle. "What's the plan, Captain?" Han asked. "Studied the planet. 7 had violent weather, massive storms that covered half the surface. Coalition ships avoided flying through them because the turbulence was too dangerous, but humans had flown through hurricanes and tornadoes on Earth. They knew how to handle bad weather." "Wu Jin, can you take us through those storms?" she asked, pointing at the planet's southern hemisphere. The pilot looked at the weather data. His eyes widened. "Those winds are hitting 300 kilometers per hour. The lightning storms would fry our systems. Any sane pilot would call it impossible." "But can you do it?" pressed. Wu Jin grinned. "I didn't say I was sane. Yeah, I can do it, but it's going to be rough, really rough." "They won't expect it," Han said. "Their sensors won't see us through those storms." Made her decision. Do it, get us to the surface, anywhere near the colony. Wu Jin's hands flew over the controls. The Steadfast turned toward the planet, accelerating hard. The warships noticed them immediately, saw weapons powering up on the tactical display. "Here we go," Wu Jin shouted. The ship dove toward the planet at a steep angle. Energy beams lanced through space where they had been seconds before. The Steadfast shook as they hit the upper atmosphere. Wu Jin guided them straight into the storm system. Everything went crazy. The ship bucked and rolled. Lightning struck their hull, making the lights flicker. Rain hammered against the so hard couldn't see anything. Alarms blared. The whole ship groaned under the stress. "Hull temperature rising," called out. "We're coming in too fast. Can't slow down or they will lock onto us." Wu Jin replied, sweat on his forehead as he fought the controls. Grabbed her chair to stay standing. This was insane. They were going to die before they even reached the colony. But Wu Jin kept flying, making tiny adjustments that kept them from spinning out of control. The ship broke through the bottom of the storm clouds. The colony appeared below them, but they were coming in way too fast and at the wrong angle. "Brace for impact," Wu Jin yelled. The Steadfast hit the ground hard. Metal screamed, was thrown forward, her safety harness cutting into her shoulders. The ship skidded across the rocky terrain, throwing up dirt and rocks. Finally, after what felt like forever, they stopped. Silence fell on the bridge, except for the sound of alarms and small fires. "Sound off," said, unbuckling her harness. "Everyone okay?" One by one, her crew reported in. Bruises and cuts, but everyone was alive. The ship, however, was badly damaged. Sparks flew from broken consoles. The main was cracked. "We're not flying out of here anytime soon," Wu Jin said, checking his instruments. "Main engines are dead. I can maybe get the thrusters working, but that's it." "Weapons?" Han asked. "Offline," reported. "Most systems are down. Life support is working. Communications are working, that's about it." Looked at the external cameras. They had crashed about 2 kilometers from the colony. She could see smoke rising from the settlement. "Han, get your team ready. We're going in on foot." The security officer nodded. "Song with me. Sara, bring your kit, we'll need medical." They gathered weapons from the armory. Rifles, sidearms, and combat knives. Humans didn't have claws, so they carried steel instead. Han handed a pistol. She checked the magazine and put it in her holster. The rear hatch opened. Hot air rushed in, carrying the smell of burning metal and smoke. The team moved out, weapons ready. They covered the ground quickly, using rocks and small hills for cover. As they got closer, they heard sounds of fighting. Energy weapons firing, screams, the harsh barking language of the... Han held up his fist, signaling everyone to stop. He pointed to a small ridge ahead. They crawled up it carefully and looked over the edge. The colony was a nightmare. Buildings burned. Bodies lay in the streets, both alien civilians and some soldiers. But most of the civilians were being herded into a central plaza by troops. The aliens were massive, even bigger than the... They had thick armor like skin, huge muscles and mouths full of sharp teeth. 500 troops, the report said, Song muttered. I'm counting maybe 50 in the colony. The rest must be on their ships or patrolling the perimeter. Pointed to a group of civilians being pushed around by 4 soldiers. We can't take on all of them. We don't have to, Han said. Not all at once. We hit them hard, fast, and then disappear. Guerrilla tactics make them afraid. Crouched next to him, what do you need? Time and space, Han said. We'll start with those 4, free those civilians and move them to safety. Then we work our way through the colony section by section. There are 3,000 people here, said. 50 troops are still too many. Then we even the odds, Han said. He looked at his team. Everyone remember their training, are big and strong, but they're used to fighting in the open. They think honor matters in combat. We show them that humans don't fight fair. They moved down from the ridge. Han led them through the ruins of a building, using the debris for cover. They got within 50 meters of the 4 soldiers before being spotted. One of them saw movement and roared, raising its weapon, but Song was faster. His rifle cracked 3 times. This armor absorbed the first 2 shots, but the third hit its throat. The alien went down. The other 3 charged. They were fast despite their size, ran to the side, drawing their attention. As one of them turned to follow her, Han appeared from behind and drove his combat knife into the back of its knee. The alien screamed and fell. The remaining 2 focused on Han. They raised their weapons, but Song shot one in the side where its armor had gaps. The last swung its massive arm at Han, who ducked under it and slashed with his knife. The blade cut across the alien's wrist, making it drop its weapon. Appeared behind it and fired her rifle at point-blank range into the back of its head. The collapsed. The whole fight lasted less than 30 seconds. The freed civilians, a group of insect-like and some tentacled creatures, stared at the humans in shock. Run, told them. Head east away from the colony, find shelter and hide. The civilians fled. Han checked his team. Everyone was fine. He looked at the dead and then at the colony where more aliens were starting to notice the commotion. They know we're here now, he said. This is where it gets interesting. More appeared, at least 20 of them. They moved toward the humans' position, weapons ready. They looked confident. After all, they were the galaxy's warriors. Humans were just soft skins. Han smiled his wolf smile again. Let's teach them about underestimation. They expected a fight. What they got was an ambush. The humans had set up traps while they were approaching. Song triggered an explosive made from their ship's power cells. It brought down a building wall, crushing 3 and blocking others. Fired from a hidden position, her shots precise and aimed at weak points in armor. Joints, eye slits, anywhere the armor didn't cover. They tried to charge her position, but Han had scattered debris in their path. The heavy aliens stumbled, and when they did, they died. Sara, the medic, proved she could shoot as well as heal. Her rifle barked steadily, controlled bursts that made every shot count. They fell back, confused. This wasn't how fights were supposed to go. The enemy was supposed to face them directly, not hide, not use tricks, not target weak spots like cowards. But humans weren't fighting for honor. They were fighting to win. By the time they regrouped, the humans had freed another 100 civilians and moved them to safety. Small team of 50 against 500 seemed impossible, but they were doing it. On their ships in orbit, the commanders watched the reports coming in. They couldn't believe it. Humans, the soft-skins, were winning. The commander, a veteran named, roared in anger. "Kill them all," he ordered. "Show these prey animals what real warriors can do." The battle had been going for 6 hours, wiped sweat from her face as she crouched behind a broken wall. Her pistol felt heavy in her hand. Around her, the colony burned. But 200 civilians were safe now, hidden in caves outside the settlement. That left 2,800 still trapped in the main compound. Han appeared next to her, moving quietly despite his armor. His face was covered in dirt and blood, though none of it was his. "We need to talk about the compound," he said. Nodded. They had pulled most of their forces back to the central plaza where they held the remaining civilians. It was a smart move. The area was open with few places to hide. They had set up defensive positions with clear firing lanes. Getting close would be suicide. "We can't leave them," said. "I know," Han replied, "but a frontal assault with our numbers would fail. We've done well with hit-and-run tactics, but they are adapting. They're not spreading out anymore. They're staying together." Crawled over to them, her rifle across her back. "We counted at least 200 soldiers in that compound. The rest are patrolling in squads of 10. We've taken down maybe 40 so far." Song joined them, breathing hard. He had a cut on his arm that Sora had wrapped with quick bandages. "They brought in elite troops from their ships. These ones are smarter. They wear heavier armor. They don't fall for our usual tricks." Closed her eyes for a moment, thinking. Back on the Steadfast, and the rest of the crew were trying to repair the ship. But even if they succeeded, what could one damaged diplomatic vessel do against 3 warships? "Captain," Sora said, appearing from the shadows, "I need to show you something." She led them to a covered area where she had set up a medical station. 3 humans lay there, injured but alive. One of them was Wu Jin, the pilot. His leg was bandaged and his face was pale. "What happened?" asked, kneeling next to him. "I got hit during the last attack," Wu Jin said through gritted teeth. "Piece of shrapnel caught my leg. Sora says it's not too bad." Sora spoke quietly. "It's bad enough. He needs proper medical care. All of them do, but they won't stop. I told Wu Jin to rest and he tried to walk back to the ship to work on repairs." Looked at the injured pilot. "You can barely walk." "I can still work with my hands," Wu Jin said stubbornly. "The ship needs fixing. We need those weapon systems online." This was what the aliens didn't understand about humans. Had seen it in the eyes of the they'd captured earlier, before Han had let him go to carry a message to his commanders. The alien couldn't comprehend why humans kept fighting after being injured. For most species, pain meant retreat. For humans, pain just meant you weren't dead yet. "Rest for now," ordered. "We'll need you sharp later." An explosion shook the ground. Everyone looked toward the compound. Smoke rose into the air. "They're getting impatient," Han said. "That was a warning. If we don't back off, they'll start executing hostages." Stood up, her mind racing. They couldn't assault the compound directly. They couldn't negotiate. They couldn't wait for help. So what could they do? An idea started forming. It was crazy. It required splitting their already small force. But sometimes crazy was all you had left. "Han, how many people can you spare for a special mission?" she asked. The security officer studied her face. "Depends on the mission. I need someone to get into the command center, find out what their plans are, maybe sabotage their communications." Han was quiet for a moment. "That's in the heart of the compound. Getting in would be nearly impossible. Getting out," he trailed off. "I know," said softly. "That's why I'm only asking for volunteers." Spoke up immediately. "I'll go." "Me too," Song added. Han looked at his Marines, then at, "I'm leading this one. Captain, you stay here and coordinate the rescue of the remaining civilians. When we create our distraction, you'll have maybe 10 minutes to get people out." "What kind of distraction?" asked. Han smiled, but there was sadness in it. "The kind that won't forget. We're going to show them what happens when you corner a human." Before could argue, a patrol appeared around the corner. 6 of them, heavily armed. They saw the humans and roared, charging forward. The fight was brutal. Song shot the first one, but his rifle jammed. He reversed it and used it as a club, smashing it into his face. Fired her pistol until it was empty, then pulled out her combat knife. One of them grabbed her, lifting her off the ground. Its massive hand could have crushed her ribs, but didn't panic. She'd studied anatomy obsessively during the flight here. She knew exactly where to strike. Her knife flashed, cutting into the soft tissue under the arm where the armor didn't reach. The alien howled and dropped her. She landed on her feet and struck again, this time at its knee. The fell. Han fought two at once. He was faster than them, ducking under their swings and striking back with his knife. Humans didn't have claws, but steel, properly used, was better than any natural weapon. The last tried to run to warn others. Sora shot it from behind. The medic's hands were shaking, but her aim was steady. When the fight ended, was breathing hard. She looked down at the she'd killed. Her arm was broken. Could see it from the angle it hung at, but just tucked it against her body and picked up her knife with her other hand. "You need medical attention," said. Later replied, "We have work to do." This was what made humans dangerous. Pain that would stop other species barely slowed them down. They were learning this the hard way. Han gathered his team. "We move in 1 hour. That gives us time to prep and gives the time to relax their guard." As they prepared, moved through the ruins, checking on her people. They were exhausted. Some were injured. All of them had been fighting for hours without real rest, but none of them quit. She found working on a communication device they'd salvaged. "Any luck reaching the coalition?" "They are jamming most frequencies," said, "but I got a signal out to Harmony's Edge. They're watching. The whole council is watching our helmet camera feeds. And they're shocked, or apparently can't believe we're still alive. Some of the other council members are arguing about sending help." "Will they?" asked. Shook her head. "Not in time to save the civilians. The nearest coalition fleet is 8 hours away." 8 hours? They didn't have 8 hours. They were getting more aggressive. Soon they'd start killing hostages to demoralize the human rescuers. Went back to where Han was preparing for his mission. He had 6 volunteers with him, including and Song. They were checking their weapons and equipment. "You know this is a one-way trip," said quietly to Han. "I know," he replied, "but those civilians need a chance. You'll get them out while they are focused on us." "There has to be another way." Han looked at her. "Maybe, but we don't have time to find it, Captain. We're humans. We evolved chasing prey for days without stopping. We ran until they collapsed from exhaustion. We didn't have claws or armor, so we made them. We turned every weakness into a weapon." He held up his combat knife. "This is what we do. We make knives, and when we run out of knives, we become the blade." Felt her throat tighten. "It's been an honor serving with you." "Not past tense yet, Captain," Han said with a grin. "We're not dead yet." His team moved out, disappearing into the darkness. Watched them go, knowing she might never see them again. An hour later, explosions rocked the compound. Fire erupted from the command center. Alarms blared. Soldiers rushed toward the chaos, leaving the civilian holding areas less guarded. Now shouted, "Go, go, go." Her remaining team moved in. They were distracted, trying to contain whatever Han's team had done, and her people reached the first holding pen and started cutting through the locks. Civilians poured out, hundreds of them, different species, all terrified. People guided them toward the exit routes. In the command center, Han fought like a demon. His team had planted explosives on this communication equipment. They had sent false orders to the patrol squads, drawing them away from the compound. Now they were fighting the elite guards. With her one good arm, still fought. Song had taken 3 hits but kept going. One by one the human volunteers fell, but they took with them. Han was the last one standing. He faced Commander himself, the massive leader who stood twice his height. "You are brave for prey," rumbled, "but bravery means nothing without strength." Han spat blood. His armor was cracked, his ribs were broken, but he smiled. "You still don't get it. Humans aren't strong because of our bodies. We're strong because we don't stop, ever. You could kill me right now, but my captain will save those civilians. More humans will come, and will keep coming until you learn to leave us alone." Raised his weapon. "Then die knowing your sacrifice was meaningless." No sacrifice is meaningless, Han said. You'll learn that too. The weapon fired, but Han's last act was to trigger the final explosive his team had placed. The entire command center collapsed. Outside heard the explosion. She knew what it meant. Tears ran down her face, but she didn't stop moving. She got civilian after civilian to safety. By the time they realized what had happened, 1,500 more civilians were free. His team melted back into the ruins. They were furious now, but they were also for the first time afraid. These soft skins didn't fight like prey, they fought like predators. On Harmony's Edge station, or watched the screens in disbelief. The feeds from 7 showed something that shouldn't be possible. 23 humans were dead. The rest were wounded, exhausted, and down to their last ammunition. But they had saved 1,700 civilians against 500 troops. This changes nothing, said the representative, though its voice lacked conviction. They will fail eventually. They still have superior numbers and 3 warships. Or said nothing. He just watched as the human captain, her remaining people. She had dirt and blood on her uniform. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, but her eyes were still determined. Park stood beside him at the station, having stayed behind for the hearing. She watched the same feeds, her hands clenched into fists. You should help them, she said quietly. Coalition law prevents intervention, or replied automatically. But even he could hear the doubt in his own voice. On 7, crouched in the ruins of what used to be a school. Around her, the remaining humans took stock of their situation. They had 15 people left who could fight. They had saved 1,700 civilians, but 1,200 still remained in hands. Wu Jin limped over, supporting himself on a makeshift crutch. His injured leg was worse now, but he'd made it back to the ship. Captain, I have news, good and bad. Give me the good first, said. I got the weapon systems partially online. We have 1 plasma cannon that might work. Maybe 3 shots before it overheats and probably explodes. And the bad? They are powering up their orbital bombardment weapons. They're going to destroy the entire colony from space. Silence fell over the group. Orbital bombardment. There was no defense against that. Even if they rescued every civilian, they could kill them all from orbit. How long do we have? Asked. Their systems take about an hour to charge for that kind of firepower, Wu Jin said. Maybe less. Song, his face pale from blood loss but his eyes still sharp, spoke up. We can't evacuate 1,200 people in an hour, not without transport. Looked at the tactical display on her wrist computer. The 3 warships hung in orbit like vultures. Their flagship, the largest one, was where the bombardment would come from, if they could disable it. How accurate is our plasma cannon? She asked Wu Jin. The pilot's eyes widened. You can't be thinking what I think you're thinking. How accurate? Repeated. At orbital range, not very. And the shields would absorb 1 shot, maybe even 2. We'd need perfect targeting data. We'd need to know exactly where their weak points are. What if we got you that data? Asked. What if we got close enough to transmit exact targeting coordinates? Then maybe, Wu Jin said slowly, maybe we could punch through with a precision strike, but someone would have to get on that ship. Or close to it, said. She turned to her team. We have 15 people, 1,200 civilians to save. 1 hour before they're all killed. We need a plan. Her broken arm, now in a proper sling, stepped forward. They have shuttles. They've been using them to ferry troops between the surface and their ships. If we could capture one, we could fly it up to their flagship, Song finished. Transmit targeting data to Wu Jin, then he takes the shot. It's a suicide mission, Sora said quietly. They would detect the shuttle, they'd know something was wrong. Not if we made it look like a normal supply run, said. They have been sending shuttles up and down all day. If we time it right, slip into their pattern. Wu Jin shook his head. Even if you got aboard, even if you transmitted the data, even if my shot worked, you'd be on that ship when it exploded. Met his eyes, I know. Captain No's voice came through the comm from the steadfast. She'd been listening to everything. There has to be another way. If you can think of one in the next hour, I'm listening, said. But right now, this is what we have. She looked at her remaining team. I need volunteers. 5 people to capture a shuttle and fly it to their flagship. The rest will focus on evacuating the remaining civilians. Every single hand went up. Felt her chest tighten. These people, these exhausted, injured, scared people, all willing to die to save strangers. Sarah, you're with me. The rest of you get those civilians out. One of the Marines, a young woman named Shin who'd been working on ship repairs, spoke up. Captain, I should stay with the steadfast. Someone needs to help Wu Jin with the firing solution. Nodded, do it. They moved out 30 minutes later. Intelligence gathered from the captured had shown them where the next supply shuttle would land. It came down right on schedule, carrying ammunition and supplies for the ground forces. The pilots never knew what hit them. His team moved fast and quiet. They had learned a lot about fighting over the past hours. They knew where to strike, how to strike, and most importantly, when to strike. Within minutes, the crew was dead. Took the pilot's seat, studying the alien controls. I can fly this. It's not that different from our shuttles. They loaded the dead back into the cargo bay. From a distance, it would look like a normal return flight. Took a breath. This was it. You still monitoring? She said into her comm. I'm here, Captain. His voice came back, tight with emotion. If we don't make it, tell Earth what happened here. Tell them humans don't abandon people, even alien people, even when it costs everything. Started using her captain's first name for the first time. I will, but you're going to make it. You have to. The shuttle lifted off. Flew it carefully, matching the flight pattern of the other supply runs. They approached the flagship and held her breath. Any second they could realize something was wrong. But the flagship's hangar bay doors opened. They were waving the shuttle in. They bought it, whispered. The shuttle landed in the hangar. Through the windows, could see dozens of moving around. The moment they opened the doors, the aliens would see dead crew members and know something was wrong. Sarah, you ready with those grenades? Asked. The medic nodded, holding several explosives they'd made from ship parts. On my mark, said 3, 2, 1, go. The doors opened. Sarah threw the grenades. They exploded in flashes of light and sound, more for distraction than damage. The team poured out, weapons firing. The in the hangar were caught completely off guard, but they recovered quickly. These were elite ship crew, not ground troops. They were trained and disciplined. Get to the data port, shouted. I'll cover you. Song ran toward a computer terminal he'd spotted. Soldiers opened fire. Energy bolts scorched the air around him. He made it to the terminal and pulled out a data spike, jamming it into the alien system. Come on, he muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. He was downloading the ship's schematics, its shield frequencies, its weak points, everything Wu Jin would need. A soldier appeared behind him, shot it before it could fire. Another came from the left. Got that one, even firing one-handed. Got it, Song shouted, transmitting now. On the surface, Wu Jin received the data. His eyes went wide. I have it. I have the targeting solution. Shin worked frantically at the weapon controls. Plasma cannon is charged. We get one shot, maybe two. After that, the system will melt. Make them count, Wu Jin said. Back on the flagship, alarms blared. They realized they had intruders. More soldiers poured into the hangar, hundreds of them. His team was surrounded. There was no escape. They knew that going in. It's been an honor, said to her people. Honor's ours, Captain, replied. They formed a circle, back to back, still fighting. Song fell first, shot by 3 at once. Sarah went next, throwing herself in front of to block a shot. Then who'd fought the entire battle with a broken arm, finally went down. was alone. She was out of ammunition. She had her combat knife. Around her, 50 soldiers closed in. Commander stepped forward. He'd survived the command center explosion, though he was badly burned. "You fought well for prey," he said, "but this is the end." Smiled through her blood and pain. "For me, maybe, but not for humanity. You called us soft. You were wrong. We're not soft. We just know how to bend without breaking, how to adapt, how to make weapons from nothing." She raised her knife. "You taught us you only respect strength, so we showed you ours." "Your strength means nothing when you die," said. "Maybe," replied, "but I don't have to live to win. I just have to make sure you lose." At that moment, the Steadfast fired. The plasma bolt traveled up from the surface, guided by songs targeting data. It hit the flagship's shield at exactly the right frequency, the right angle. The shields flickered and failed. The second shot punched through the hull, straight into the main reactor. Saw the lights flicker. She saw his eyes widen in disbelief. "Humans don't give up," she said, "ever." The flagship exploded. The shockwave tore through space. The other two warships, caught by surprise, tried to pull away, but the explosion damaged them both. On Harmony's edge, or watched the flagship die. He watched Captain die with it, still fighting to the last second. He stood up. "Prepare my fleet," he said. "What?" they asked. "You cannot." "I can and I will," Or said, his voice hard. "Those humans just crippled an attack fleet with 50 people and a damaged diplomatic ship. They saved nearly 2,000 civilians. They fought like warriors, like legends." He looked at the council. "If we let them die here, we are not worthy to call ourselves a coalition." His fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing towards 7. Wu Jin watched through the Steadfast sensors as the flagship exploded. He knew Captain had been on that ship. He knew what that bright flash of light meant. His hands shook on the controls. "Captain," he whispered. Then louder, "Captain, come in, please respond." Only static answered. Shin put her hand on his shoulder. Her face was wet with tears. She did it. She saved them. On the ground, the remaining forces saw their flagship die. They saw their commander die. Confusion spread through their ranks. Some tried to fight on. Others ran for their remaining shuttles. The two surviving warships turned to flee, but then space rippled. Ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Big ships, coalition ships. Or's fleet had arrived. The commander's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Vessels, you are surrounded. Stand down immediately or be destroyed." The ships, already damaged from the flagship's explosion, had no choice. They surrendered. On the surface, coalition landed. Warriors poured out, their weapons ready. But the battle was over. They threw down their weapons. They looked at the ruins of the colony, at the small group of human survivors, and they couldn't understand how they'd lost. Or's shuttle touched down near the crashed Steadfast. The commander stepped out, his eyes scanning the devastation. He saw human bodies, 23 of them, laid out in a row by their surviving comrades. So few, so very few to have done so much. Wu Jin limped out to meet him, supported by. The pilot's face was pale, his leg wound bleeding through the bandages, but he stood straight. "Captain?" Or asked, though he already knew the answer. "Dead," Wu Jin said, his voice flat. "She boarded the flagship with a strike team, transmitted targeting data so we could take it down. She knew she wouldn't survive." Or looked at the young human. "How many civilians did you save?" 1,700, Wu Jin replied. "We couldn't get the last 1,200 out before they would have started the bombardment. Captain made sure they died when she took out their flagship." "She saved them by destroying the threat," Or said slowly, understanding. "Not by evacuation, but by removing the enemy's ability to kill them." "That's what humans do," said quietly. "We adapt, we find a way." Medical teams rushed forward, coalition doctors and medics. They looked at the human survivors with something like awe. These people should all be dead. By any logical military calculation, they should have died in the first hour. but they hadn't. Over the next hours, as the situation stabilized, the full story emerged. 50 humans against 500. A battle that lasted 12 hours. 23 humans dead, 340 dead, 2 warships crippled, 1 destroyed, 1,700 civilians saved. The numbers shouldn't work, but they did. A week later, the Galactic Coalition Council reconvened on Harmony's Edge. The chamber was packed. Representatives from every species wanted to see this. Park stood where Captain had stood before, wearing a black uniform in mourning. Or spoke first. "We called humans soft skins, we said they were weak, we said they would be a liability to the coalition." He paused. "We were wrong." The chamber erupted in discussion, or raised his hand for silence. "I have fought for 300 years," he continued. "I have faced every warrior species in this galaxy. I thought I understood combat. I thought I understood what made a warrior." He looked directly at. "Humans taught me I understood nothing." He activated a holographic display. It showed footage from 7. The council watched in silence as humans fought with tactics no one had seen before. They watched humans take injuries that would incapacitate and keep fighting. They watched Captain walk into certain death to save people she'd never met. "Humans don't have natural armor," or said, "so they make it. They don't have claws, so they forge them. They don't have venom, so they create weapons. Every weakness in their biology they turn into strength through technology and determination." The representative spoke up, its voice buzzing. "But they are still fragile. We saw many humans die." "Yes," or agreed. "They died, but do you know what they did before they died? They saved 1,700 lives. They crippled an attack fleet. They sent a message to every hostile species in this galaxy: humans don't give up." He pulled up more data. "I studied human history after 7. Do you know how humans became the apex predator on their world? They didn't outrun their prey. They didn't overpower them. They chased them, for days, for weeks if necessary. They ran until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. They call it persistence hunting. This is the species you saw at 7. When we would have retreated, they advanced. When we would have surrendered, they attacked. When we would have conserved strength, they spent everything because they knew they could endure longer than their enemy." The tentacled alien from before spoke. "You ask us to admit a species of endurance hunters to the coalition. I ask you to admit a species of survivors," or said, "a species that turns every disadvantage into an advantage. Yes, they're fragile. Yes, they have no natural weapons, but they have something more dangerous than claws or armor. They have the absolute refusal to quit." Stepped forward. "May I speak?" The council nodded. "You're right about everything," said. "Humans are fragile, we break easily, we die easily. But that's exactly why we fight so hard. We know we're vulnerable. We know we're not the strongest or the fastest. So we became the most adaptable, the most stubborn." She pulled up an image of Captain. "My captain died on that flagship, so did her team. 23 humans died on 7, but they died protecting people they'd never met. Aliens they'd only just learned existed. They didn't do it for glory or honor. They did it because it was right." "You called us soft," continued, her voice growing stronger. "You were wrong. We're not soft. We're steel that bends instead of breaking. We're the species that makes knives from nothing. And when we have no more knives to make, we become the blade ourselves." The chamber was silent. Finally the spoke. "We have seen humans fight, but can they build? Can they create? Can they contribute beyond warfare?" Smiled. "Look at our ship. The Steadfast was a diplomatic vessel. It wasn't designed for combat, but our engineer Shin modified it mid-battle to take down a flagship. We took a tool of peace and made it a weapon when we needed to. Then when the battle was over, she helped rebuild. That's what humans do. We adapt to whatever the situation needs." Or stood again. "The move to grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Coalition, not as a probationary species, as full members with all rights and responsibilities. One by one, the other species voted, some enthusiastically, some reluctantly, but when the final count came in, it was unanimous. Humanity was in. After the ceremony, or approached privately. In his hands, he carried a warrior's blade. It was a traditional weapon, given only to those who had proven themselves in battle. "For your captain," he said, offering it to. "In my culture, we give these to warriors we respect. She showed us what true strength is." Took the blade carefully. It was heavy, made for hands larger than hers. "Thank you," she would have been honored. "There is something else," Or said. "The council wants to build a memorial on 7 for the humans who died there." "What kind of memorial?" asked. "We let the survivors decide," Or said. "What do you think it should be?" Thought about Captain, about Han and his team, about all 23 humans who gave everything to save strangers. "Statues," she said finally. 23 figures standing guard over the civilians they saved. Different species all together, protected by humans. "And the inscription?" Or asked. Remembered something Han had said before his final mission. She'd heard it on the recording. "We are the species that makes knives, and when there are none left to make, we become the blade." Or nodded slowly. "It will be done." 6 months later, the memorial was complete. 23 human figures cast in metal, standing in a circle around representations of 7 different alien species. The humans faced outward, weapons ready, protecting those behind them. At the base, carved in every language the coalition knew, were the words had chosen. When the memorial was unveiled, thousands attended. Civilians from 7 who had been saved, coalition military officers, diplomats from across the galaxy, and a small group of 27 humans, the survivors of the Steadfast's crew. Wu Jin, walking without a limp now, stood before the statue of Captain. He placed a hand on the cold metal. "We did it, Captain," he said softly. "We're in. Humanity has a place among the stars, because you showed them what we really are." Shin stood beside him. "They called us soft, they didn't understand." "Now they do," Wu Jin said. Across the galaxy, the story of 7 spread. The story of how 50 humans defeated 500, how a species with no natural weapons became the most feared warriors in coalition space. Not because they were stronger, not because they were tougher, but because when backed into a corner, when faced with impossible odds, humans simply refused to lose. The Empire learned this lesson the hard way. They had thought humans were easy prey. They had thought soft skins meant weak. They were wrong. In the years that followed, other hostile species would learn the same lesson. Humans were fragile. Humans were vulnerable. But humans were also relentless, creative, and absolutely unwilling to abandon their own or their allies. They were the species that turned every weakness into a weapon, the species that made knives from nothing, the species that bent but never broke. They were soft as steel and twice as deadly. Back on Earth, in military academies and diplomatic schools, the Battle of 7 became required study. Young humans learned about Captain and her crew. They learned about Han's sacrifice, about fighting with a broken arm, about Wu Jin taking the impossible shot. But most importantly, they learned the lesson those 23 humans had taught the galaxy. Being soft doesn't mean being weak. It means being flexible, adaptable, able to bend under pressure and spring back stronger. Humans weren't the strongest species in the galaxy. They weren't the fastest or the toughest, but they were the ones who never stopped, the ones who turned every defeat into a lesson and every weakness into an advantage. They were the ones who showed the galaxy that true strength isn't about having claws or armor or natural weapons. True strength is about having the will to stand up, no matter how many times you're knocked down. The courage to protect others, even at the cost of yourself. The determination to find a way forward, no matter how impossible the odds. The aliens had called them soft. The humans showed them knives. and the galaxy would never forget.